What's up guys, how you doing? Welcome to another video. So today we are continuing the series all about the Canon R6, and specifically today we are looking at the electronic shutter. Seems to be one of the big talking points all around the Canon R6 is, yeah, it's great, people are starting to test it, images are appearing, but one of the big questions is, can you use the electronic shutter? And even more specifically, can you use the electronic shutter for sports and action? Historically, when you're trying to use an electronic shutter with sports and action, you can get issues with rolling shutter effect. Not going to go into the science of that, mainly because I'm not an expert, but in very simple terms, it basically means distortion of an image of something that is moving fast when you use an electronic shutter. And it's kind of to do with, as the electronic shutter moves and scans across that sensor, that it can affect the movement of something. Very non-scientific explanation. If you want to find out about that, go Google it, because there are people who will explain it better than me. But I'm not here to explain that to you. I'm here to test the electronic shutter on the Canon R6, and I have been doing just that. I've tested it at some football, soccer for you guys across the pond, and I've used it for some basketball, and I've got some awesome results. I'm going to show you now. We're going to talk through some of them. Before we get into it, if you guys have been enjoying this series all about the Canon R6, do me a favour, hit that like button. It helps me out loads on my video, helps me out on my channel, and I really appreciate it. For those of you guys who are new, think about subscribing. The subscribe button is right there. If you want to see more videos in the future, stick around, hit that subscribe button, and you can join in all the fun. Not talked about my Instagram channel the last couple of videos, so if you want to go check it out, you want to see some more of these sports photos, best place is at Rob Samble Sport. Go check me out on Instagram and you can see loads of the photos over there. Comment on something, let's have a chat, it's great. Get loads of interaction over there on Instagram, really cool to see. Right, so look, first of all, let's get into talking about these photos from the football that I did. Now I think I should say pretty much all of these photos were shot either on my 300mm f2.8 or my 70-200 f2.8. I'm going to put the specifics in the camera and the settings alongside the photo, so you'll be able to see if you're interested, but don't worry too much about that because those are roughly the same. Pretty much all at f2.8, and then the corresponding ISO level to make sure my shutter speed was high enough for my sports and action. Shutter speed generally was around 1,000th or 12/50th of a second. So let's talk about the football. I tried to get a mixture of shots of people moving across and towards me, backwards. I tried to get some stuff where the ball was moving pretty fast, because that was quite an important thing. And as you can see, starting to look at some of these shots which are appearing on the screen right now, we got some fantastic results. Really great images. I don't think you would ever look at any of those images and say, oh, I bet those were shot on the electronic shutter, because they're great. They're decent sports images. I've been able to use them really well for my job and for the coverage of that game. Now, I tried to make sure I got a real big sequence, because that electronic shutter, as you might know, shoots at a crazy fast 20 frames per second. So I thought we had to test that out. So right here, coming up on the screen now, you will see a sequence, all these images shot at full speed, 20 frames per second, using that electronic shutter, and you'll see they have all come out perfectly. No issues with any of them at all. So I've got to say, overall my tests with the football, with the soccer, came out really well, but that was in the daylight, and I thought, you know what, we need to push this test a step further. Let's go shoot some basketball indoors under artificial lights and see if that makes a difference. So these next few images right here, these are basketball, again all shot with the electronic shutter, and all of these in fact were shot with the 70-200 f2.8 lens. Okay, so all of those are shot the same. Now those of you familiar with shooting basketball will know it is a fast moving sport. These guys were moving around. We had arms, legs, the basketball itself moving all over the place. So I really had to freeze the action here. And you can see with these images, the electronic shutter kept up again really well. I actually tried to kind of force it to see if we could get any kind of distortion. I deliberately tried to aim some photos with the basketball, like moving at pace. Now, when you look at this one, this is a player who is bouncing the ball. So this ball is on the way down. So it's just come off the guy's hand and it's on its way down towards the floor. If you were being picky, you could maybe say there was a bit of distortion in that basketball. But what I would say, you guys who have shot basketball before, you will know that when someone is bouncing a basketball, or even when they're passing it fast, it does change shape in the air, especially if it's being bounced. It's crazy. If you just stand there yourself and bounce a basketball, you wouldn't register it's doing anything at all. But when you start taking photos of it, it is crazy how much that basketball moves as it bounces on and off the floor. So whilst yes, you could argue there's a bit of distortion in that photo, I have taken photos with a DSLR mechanical shutter and several times caught the basketball looking exactly like that, just because of the movement that it has when it comes off the floor. It's crazy. Go try it, you guys who shoot basketball. Get someone to bounce a ball against the floor and try to capture it exactly as it meets the floor. You will be crazy surprised about just how much of that basketball goes flat against the floor when you freeze the frame. So as I said, all of these basketball ones were shot indoors. They were shot at some higher ISO levels, as you can see in the settings I put on the screen. And again, really impressed. And in fact, I've got to say, 20 frames per second, almost too much for me. That was a training session I went to shoot. I'll normally come away from a training session with like 100, maybe 200 images. Nothing like a game where you could comfortably come away with over 1,000 images. It's a training session, so you know, I shoot what I want to shoot quite purposefully. I'm not there just firing off images left, right and centre. But I found with that electronic shutter shooting 20 frames per second, I came away with nearly 900 images. It is almost too fast. It's almost given me too many shots. Did you ever think you would complain about that? Definitely not. So in summary, all in all, I've got to say really impressed. Some fantastic images coming off with that electronic shutter. You guys are probably going to ask about the focus. Pretty much all of those images were shot on center point focus. Some of them were shot using the facial recognition autofocus, but most of them were shot using center point single point focus. Those of you who are interested in the higher ISO levels that I just talked about, my next video is going to be all about that. We're going to be comparing the ISO performance against the 1DX, which I think is going to be really interesting. Make sure you stick around and subscribe for that. In the meantime, guys, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, and I'm going to see you guys on the next video.